Digital freight matching. It used to be a buzzword, but now it's a reality. Any freight broker worth their proverbial salt is investing heavily in ways to help carriers find loads and keep them within their network. But what does this technology look like, and what are important things to consider? Well, folks, it's a highly competitive industry, and for many carriers stuck with Excel spreadsheets, it can feel a little overwhelming. Well, today we're in for a deep dive into the world of load matching. But how can a broker know the loads you want before you do? Well, we're going to find out in this episode of Loaded and Rolling. Welcome to Loaded and Rolling. I'm your host, Thomas Watson. The world of freight used to be built around the telephone. Back in my day, when I started as a freight broker, the magic number was 10 calls per hour and around 100 calls per shift, with the hopes of getting 2 to 3 loads booked, if you were me at least. And when I tried to ask if there was a smarter way of doing business, I was greeted with blank stares, like a caveman recommending a new form of fire. It just didn't work, I was told. Well, fast forward, and luckily for us, the technology is opening up new doors to find better ways to connect carriers with loads. Sure, you can still call carriers, but now they have thousands of loads at their fingertips. But the hard part now is finding out where you want to go. The good news is, freight brokers want to help you answer that question, and they want to sell you some of their freight in the meantime. Joining us today to talk about the amazing freight technology is Jason Stewart, Director of Procurement at Circle Logistics. Jason, who's based out of Chicago, has dealt heavily with the carrier side, manages carrier relationships, and knows a thing or two about carriers. Welcome, Jason.
Thank you, Thomas. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Happy to have you on as well. So diving in, what's kind of the story on how Circle Logistics decided to jump into this technology and load matching game?
Well, really, it was more of how do we take care of our carriers, right? What do we do to ensure that we're supplementing and complementing what a carrier wants to do? And you said something in your opening, more of like, oh, we're telling some driver where he wants to go. No, we want to show him what he wants, right? It's that driver has his his needs, and our job is to make sure that we highlight those in a clean way, that he gets offered the right loads at the right time. And I think that's what kind of got us into it, is making sure our drivers are connected with us in real time.
And getting them connected and then trying to, match them with loads. Were there any unexpected hurdles or any cool things you found out throughout the process? Because from my experience, carriers can be notoriously difficult in even figuring out where the heck they go if you look at their traditional postings and stuff.
Yeah, it's you talk to someone about, okay, you want this load. How often can you take it? Oh, I'm just here today. And really getting our people to have deeper conversations about what is your network, where do you want to go consistently, and then we input that into our system, and that's what highlights it. So it's not telling someone what he wants or where he needs to go. It's really highlighting the things that he's already told us. That driver, he or she, or that dispatcher or owner of a company has told us about that. We build profiles in each carrier, and then we use that information to highlight and offer the loads that kind of fit that criteria for them.
And it kind of brings up the term synergy. And I'm not talking like the 80s when we used to buy out a bunch of companies. But, what is lane synergy and carrier synergy? What kind of is that term for folks who are not as familiar on this side of the fence? What's kind of the goal with that?
It's really matching someone who, us going and saying, I have drivers who want to go from, Allentown to Philadelphia or down, to Virginia every day. And then really highlighting that to our customers and back and forth, offering the correct opportunities from our customers to our carriers, and showing our customers what our carriers want and how that our network and how we've consolidated that can kind of can highlight the needs for both sides, and really connecting the two quicker.
I feel like that's half the battle, is just making the connections and figuring out like what the shipper wants and what the carrier wants. And then often we're at like two different areas, and data is a big part of that. So when we're looking into the kind of data, what is stuff that is the most important when you're looking at, we're talking like OD pairs, are we talking about length of haul or rate? What are some of the big things that carriers are looking at?
I know it's not a popular opinion, but I think, the head haul, back haul days are kind of over, with technologies really put things at fingertips, right? So, when that regional trucking company needed to get back to home before, and they would look at cheaper rates. That's kind of antiquated now, where they have access to thousands and thousands of loads on either way. So really, it's looking at what fits that company's needs as far as what they want to accomplish, right? So a company, drivers getting home every night is extremely important. So figuring out what that company's individual needs are and being able to highlight from a data perspective, it's more of, there's so many different data points. You could sit here all day and have 100 analysts, but it's really our technology and our data just needs to complement our drivers and our customers. It's not a replacement of, it's in lieu, it's an addition to. I think that's what's helped us be able to match a lot of our carriers to customers' needs, and really in any sort of market volatility as well, being able to kind of create those relationships and supplement them with data, not replace it with technology.
And I think the data helps you to find the type of carrier. I remember when I was starting, I did a little tour as a broker when I did trucking as well. And you'd have different types, market carriers. You had the ones that, like you said, the traditional looking to get back to my routed customer. And I guess now, does this kind of open the door to a carrier that feels like I've got 2 extra trucks? Now I can just use all of these tech platforms and keep them running without feeling like I have to solicit a form of business. Is that kind of what we're looking at?
Yeah, I think that our job as a broker is to consolidate these smaller companies and really give them access to opportunities they wouldn't normally get unless they were larger, unless they want to make a huge investment into sales. But it's more of what you see now is the relationship building being key, and telling our people at Circle who are the carriers that you need to call. So that way we're not taking someone who's never ran a lane before. We're offering that lane to the carriers who have hauled it consistently. They don't get lost in that. And I think that's going to be really important through the next kind of 6 months to a year of the market, is really highlighting that and making sure that we're offering the right truck, for that load at the right time. I think that's extremely important.
Well, it reminds me when I was an account executive, and that competition between carriers bringing the rates and the relationship versus a new incumbent who's undercutting. It reminds me, do you see that's kind of in the next 6 months with rates being as they are in the market? Is that going to be where this technology allows you better visibility and you can see that kind of relationship versus, for me, it used to just be rates, and then we'd kind of have a vague idea and someone gets mad and says that I should have given it to somebody else?
I think it's creating better conversations with carriers too, right? So it's not just who's the cheapest. It's, hey, this market's gonna be really volatile, and having that partnership, and where you're saying, I understand, fuel's up and this, and really making adjustments for those carriers, and density. Nobody wants this spot market craziness. Everybody wants some consistency with their business, and I think that carriers need it. We need to provide it because it comes with increased service, and so it does definitely facilitate increased conversations, being able to highlight that carrier who's taken that load a lot, and being able to showcase that throughout a company, instead of it just being one person who maybe sees it and has a relationship with a dispatcher. At Circle, we're able to create relationships with owners of trucking companies and have higher level conversations. I think we've had, 15 to 20 carriers in our office in the last couple of weeks. And we're going to be continuing that the rest of the year to really make sure that we're partnering with these carriers through volatile times.
And kind of like technology, making yourself a broker of choice for the carriers. If I sign up
Absolutely.
for this stuff and I'm wanting to use a platform, what are kind of the first steps? I'm assuming I just put in my carrier packet, or if I've got a relationship, do I just see a load board, or am I still working with a rep? How does this technology help
It's
augment it?
it's a little bit of both. It's kind of we want to be able to, for carriers to be able to have the ease of access. So yes, you can go sign up at circleloads.com, and you can go there and you can sign up with us, and you can fill out a packet online, and you can book a shipment. But immediately once you book a shipment with us, you're going to get a phone call, and that phone call is basically going to be like, hey, thank you for working with us, some verification, and then also like a profiling. Yeah, hey, like what do you do? What's your kind of bread and butter lanes? What kind of equipment do you have? Stuff like that, and that goes into the system, and that kind of starts generating the next movements, right? That generates the loads you're offered, the emails you'll receive. If you don't want emails, you'll be able to opt out, but kind of takes it from there. So, but also too, you have a rep that you can call at any point in time, and being that kind of access to, for carriers to have that sort of choice, freedom of choice of how they run their business. It's our job to complement that, not try and dictate it. So
From like a rep standpoint, I remember I came from a trucking startup that had a few digital brokers, and one of the brokerages was having some trouble because the reps were getting frustrated that the algorithm started posting up rates and they didn't have any say-so over it. So they'd be taking auto losers or it'd be booked under them. Is that something where with the technology, is there kind of a balance between like carriers are going to take advantage of the best rate, but at the same time, like that rep doesn't want to be just stuck with a big old goose egg.
Yeah, our reps really the technology is going to support them. For example, they're carriers that go online and they're booking those loads. It gives them access to maybe more freight than a single rep can see. So we're actually seeing great improvement in those relationships, and the carrier reps are appreciative of it. They actually really like it because they can't see the thousands of loads that Circle moves at one time, but now their carriers are able to see it and they're able to facilitate and guide that relationship instead of the grind of a carrier rep days. Those are going away, and it's really moving toward more of an account management thing where that carrier rep is having higher level robust conversations with leaders of these trucking companies to figure out how they can facilitate growth. Yeah, how do we bring the trucks they have to our customers and say, here's a strength that Circle has from our network, and and be able to relay that to them and also back to the carriers.
That kind of blows my mind because when I started as a carrier rep, that's exactly what you do. You get them on the phone. You're like, hey, which way are you going? Let me look at my internal load board real quick. Do you want this one? Do you want this one? And you'd be tied up on your line. And the funniest story I saw was this guy was one of the reps. He would just text him or email him. And they'd get on to him. They're like, you're not doing your 10 calls per hour. You got to step it up, bro. And he's like, look at my numbers, though. I'm using this technology to book for me. Like, is that kind of the future, right?
We still want people on the phone because that's how we don't want the transactional just email, but the actual manualness of booking a load and things like that, we want to be streamlined because we want our people on the phone cultivating relationships. It is if someone's just like, oh, here's a rate over an email, you're not creating a sort of long-lasting relationship with companies. There's been a few companies I've worked with that have gone from 5 trucks to 20 to 30 trucks over the course of a few years because we're inserted in their business and them with us as well. So that's where you talk synergies and how kind of we grow together. That's really what I pride myself on here, and that's what I know a lot of our employees do as well.
As one thing I was curious about. We're talking about AI-driven bots as well, kind of shifting gears a little bit. Is that something where you're looking at like load boards you can't get access to or see, so you're trying to pull additional data to provide them, or is that something where this technology is just trying to aggregate more loads to offer?
It it's really just consolidating our behaviors, right? So knowing that maybe we're better in a certain market than others. Maybe we buy a little bit better than we feel our competitors do in a certain area. It's really highlights our behaviors and kind of brings it together to bring a solution to our customers in more real time. It's not about just like going to bid on more loads or just to get more transactional freight. It's really about taking our behaviors at a larger size and being able to bring it together and say, okay, what does Circle do different? Where are we better? Or where do we need to improve on? And being able to highlight those things instead of just saying, oh, here's a rate or here's this, but actually having, the probability of us being able to cover that with the right carrier at the right price at the right time and being able to showcase that to our customers instead of it just being this random everyone bids the bottom and everyone's kind of maybe left with it, holding in their hands when they can't execute. We try to make sure that we're making data backed decisions when it comes to our customers and our carriers and make sure that we can follow through on those commitments.
Well, I think in this market as well, you're almost stair-stepping downwards competing against brokers and carriers. I've had that happen a few times where you pull the lane data and you say, oh, well, we buy at this. We always buy at this. And you zoom in and you're like, no, there were 2 carriers that do this stuff. And that's why it looks like you buy this way. And the next thing you know, you lose like $300 and I get yelled at.
The thing is, with it, the way you learn is by making mistakes, and here, people are going to make mistakes. As long as we do it with integrity to our carriers, integrity to our customers, and with utmost service, mistakes are totally going to happen, especially in this market. But as long as we take care of our carriers, we take care of our customers, and service first mentality, that's something that's not not an issue.
I feel like service is going to be such a big deal and going into service into scorecards. And so I've seen it from like big trucking. We tried doing driver scorecards, but there's way too many drivers, so it was hard to figure out. But from a carrier scorecard, what are some big things that go into it that a carrier should know about? That way, when they call a broker and the broker's kind of on the fence about it, what are ways you can look at it and then improve upon it?
On time pickup and delivery is obviously important, but more of that is the enhanced visibility is a state standard. Here at Circle, we're at 96 to 98% enhanced visibility with 15-minute updates to our customers, and that's the gold standard. That's what customers want. You can see where your Amazon truck is when it's coming to deliver to you. Why can't a shipper see where their job site delivery is going to be? And so that's for us, the carriers that we use the most, they're carriers that are leaders in enhanced visibility, whether it's through ELD, trailer tracking, or cell phones as a last resort. But that's really where the gold standard is for us. But things like just communication through electronic means is important, but also the on-time pickup delivery obviously is critical, but it's just communication, and we highlight that through the enhanced visibility and through just talking to our carriers, and that's how our scorecards are kind of done. And you know, carriers want to be seen well. They don't like when maybe a driver has doesn't do the right behavior. So being able to be transparent with our carrier partners about where they are and what they can do to improve and what we can do to improve for them too is important.
And when we're talking about the scorecard, is it one where it's like all of them, so I got to run a bunch more loads to fix it, or is it kind of like a rolling rate? I think Uber Freight did one because I pissed them off one time with my startup where we'd failed some loads, but then it was a snapshot, so it kept moving up, so it kind of like the failed loads disappeared. Is that something with a scorecard? Is it more of a static thing that I just got to run more loads and improve, or is there something where maybe I get a little help down the line
You know,
by
we don't
waiting
we
it
don't,
out?
we don't really use that rigid behavior. It's more of just a way for us to make better decisions, right? I don't like to, someone has a bad month or a bad quarter, or something like that as a carrier. I don't like to be so rigid. Say, oh, we're not using them. That seems kind of, not the smartest thing for us to do as a business. But it just highlights a conversation. Really, it really just highlights a conversation needs to get had between a carrier before they take a significant amount of business about improvements. It's more of a coaching tool. It's more of a working together, a networking thing. Hey, we need to have a conversation with this carrier about some of the expectations that we have. But I'm not going to say no to someone because they maybe had a bad couple of weeks until we've dug into it and see what the kind of root causes are and talk about improvements.
That's what I was curious about because I know equipment's been problems, trailers. I was reading a few articles about trailer repair shops saying that they used to just not even repair these things, and now they're losing money on certain ones because it's sitting in their dock and they're waiting on parts. Like, is that something where y'all are seeing some of those issues with just the supply chain? It's impacting these carriers.
There's a lot of maintenance, more maintenance issues, but again, that carriers that are communicative about it, and you can see that we know when the carrier when there's bad equipment or something like that, and there's shorter hauls, will be more allowed, but it's just about each customer, and we have over 1,000 different customers we haul for in a month, and so each customer has different requirements and different needs. There's going to be there's a place for it, right? And I think that over time, carriers as they mature their business coming out of the pandemic are going to kind of get their maintenance cycles back. But it's not something that's overall an issue. I think it's just something that just again facilitates a conversation between that rep, for those loads and that carrier, and making sure that there's transparency and communication there. That's the most important thing.
That's what I was curious about as well, because especially the communication part with the customers. Certain customers have expectations, and the commodity as well. Is that something where
Absolutely.
have you seen carriers paying more attention to saying, "Hey, where's this thing really picking up out of in terms of facilities?" Or is that where now that the environment's loosened up for capacity, are they just taking what they can get, even if the customer may take a little longer?
No, I think carriers know what they want, and I think they know what kind of commodities they want, what weights, what times, pickup times. I think that the technology improvements has really showcased that to carriers, where it's not just oh, I have to take this. And I think that it's important for our customers. They know, what they need to do in order to be a shipper of choice, and they actually want that. They want to know what carriers think. Speaking of scorecards, they want to know what carriers think of their facilities. We've had multiple Fortune 500 companies talk to us recently about wanting to know what the carriers think of their facilities, of their times, of the commodity, of their loading procedures. I think in the next 6 to 12 months, you'll see that become even more and more transparent of people wanting that, and it's because drivers that had to sit outside in the cold during the pandemic and can go inside and things like that. Those issues came to light, and I think we're seeing a lot of improvements in that long term because of that kind of transparency of scorecards and surveys and things like that.
Well, that's a good sign because I remember the feedback was the hardest. Even when I was a carrier and a broker, you could tell them the one thing, but it didn't always get back to the next person. So you'd have like a tire person, let's say Goodyear, for instance, and they wonder why it takes so long to floor load the tires, and you don't find out until later that was one of the DCs that decided to do something. So that's kind of like one of the opportunities with the technology as well, is you can get that feedback not only from carriers, but you can have that two-way communication, right?
I
theoretically.
feel like that's like the obligation of being a partner, is telling our customers what, they're kind of here, these are issues that are causing, maybe some service issues or maybe a lack of carrier capacity for your shipments because of this, and this. You have only open 11 p.m. to 2 a.m. for pickup, or, you don't have facilities for drivers. You don't have on-site parking or a waiting room or whatever. And they want to know that. They really do. And it's not the old days where you have to just say, oh yes, please give me loads. It's a facilitated dialogue both ways, and I think it's really important to be transparent with both of our customers. Our customers are our carriers and our shippers. We have two, and it's important to be transparent to both of them.
And looking into modes as well, I'm hearing about power only becoming a big deal. A lot of technologies helping connect carriers, with power only freight. Is that something at Circle? Do you look into specific modes like power only as well for the offerings, or is it right now the technology and everything's towards like live or instead of preloads?
No, actually, drop trailers have been one of the largest areas for us of growth lately. That's something that brokerages normally never did before, but we've been able to really, really build that out more to where there's no difference for us from with drop trailer shipments than it would be dealing with a large asset carrier at all. Our customers haven't had any sort of drop off when they've used us in drop trailers, and we've had that opportunity through the pandemic. And we do some power only stuff, but I think that's not really a huge area of growth for us, but creating custom solutions for our customers with drop trailer programs or relays and things like that is definitely something that we showcase because again gives carriers consistent business.
Well, I think that in context, it kind of blows my mind. I remember even back in 19 when I was a broker, it was a pain in the neck to deal with, preloaded trailers and dropping hooks and all the, because there was so much involved. And I guess a lot of the shippers didn't care about technology. Is that one of the cool things of the pandemic, at least now, because it was so hard to find a truck, everyone has to embrace this stuff.
Yeah, and the technology's helped be able to keep track of trailers, not have trailers getting lost at different shippers and receivers. That's helped a lot. I think that before that probably was a huge issue. Oh, okay, you're going to drop trailers into a yard and you're never going to know where they are at or see them ever again. But we don't. That the technology's almost mitigated that fully. And again, it's just about creating an operating process that's transparent with your customer and your carriers. That way, everybody knows exactly what's expected. People want to be successful. Carrier. Everyone talks about, oh, well, this carrier did this. Carriers want to be successful. If we set upfront expectations, we listen to their wants and needs, and we create a solution that fits both of them. That fits the carrier's needs, wants, what they need to do, and also what the customer's expectations are from us.
And small carriers versus large carriers, with the technology offerings and stuff, has that kind of helped both sides, or has it mostly benefited some of the smaller carriers that haven't really had the access before? Because I remember a large carrier we'd work with stuff, we had the EDIs, we kind of just sent it. But for smaller ones, is this kind of like the game changer?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So small carriers are able to get access to shipments, get access to rate data, things like that quicker than they ever have before. Whereas large carriers have been having that for years because they have their own databases or their own, the money they spent. So for, the 1 to 10 trucking companies being able to have access to the data, the technology, I think it has been a game changer. And that's why I think you're still seeing, an increase of people joining the market. It's not just rates; it's the ability to grow their own business. And, rates are obviously high, so you saw a lot of new trucking companies start. But I think you'll still see that even as rates, kind of maybe level off, is because of the technology makes it a lot easier for these small companies to compete and to be able to provide a service that obviously shippers and brokers need.
And so right now, kind of a prediction here. I'm curious. We're coming into fourth quarter. Things seem kind of maybe yes or no in terms of the peak surge. What are y'all seeing on the ground right now in terms of carrier behavior? Has anything changed over the past few months?
I think that carriers are understanding of what's going on in the economy. I mean, look at the news. The economy's obviously going through some hiccups, and so carriers are wanting to have the conversation about what does consistent business going into 2023, look like. I think in previous years it'd be more shorter term conversations of, hey, these rates for peak or these trailers. But we're seeing people wanting to have more long-term conversations right now, and we're facilitating those as we speak, and really putting ourselves and the carriers in a good position going into 2023. We're really excited about it, actually. And I think a lot of people are a little bit more scared. I think that we're excited to get back to the roots, providing great service, creating cultivate relationships with our customers and carriers. I think that Circle's really excited about what the future holds for us and for the carriers that we work with.
That's what I kind of feel like as well. If you have the fundamentals right, if you're a broker or a carrier and you figured it out, you can survive any term of it. It's the ones that haven't figured it out and they came in during the freight rush or the truck rush. That's kind of what it feels like. Now,
Yeah.
for folks interested in reaching out, want to get connected with Circle or connect with you as well, learn more about the tech, what's the best way to get in contact with y'all?
CircleLoads.com is our load board for our carriers. You do have to be signed up, but you can do that for everybody else. CircleDelivers.com. For me personally, 260-208-4500. I answer my phone all the time. I answer calls from carriers, 10, 11 o'clock at night. If there's an issue, anybody else for anything like that, we'll get you in contact with the right people for your business needs, especially for the drivers out there. I'll get you a carrier rep signed and get you in the system. But thank you. Yeah, our base at circleloads.com. We have a chat bot on there too that can communicate, answer questions about loads you have, or kind of point you in the right direction of what department you need to get a hold of as well.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Jason, for coming on the show. We'll look for you at F3 as well. So looking forward to seeing what y'all are working on.
Awesome. Can't wait to see it. Thanks, Thomas. Appreciate you having me.
That's going to be a wrap for today's show, but you can check us out. We are on Apple, Spotify, FreightWaves.com/loaded and rolling even as well. And then additionally, you can find the Loaded and Rolling newsletter Wednesday nights and Saturday mornings. I know it's a weird time, but there's like a time zone difference, so it works out. It's pretty good stuff. A little bit of everything around the industry. Crazy times we're living in, so definitely keep an eye out, but really excited to see how load boards and digital freight matching are happening and very excited to have the Circle folks on again. You can check us out, though. That'll be it for today. Next week, we'll be doing it live as well. That's a wrap. I'm Thomas Wasson. This was Loaded and Rolling.